Lads, welcome back to Fusion YGO and another deck profile today. This time we are revisiting scraps, and I know Patrick just uploaded a scrap Orcus video not too long ago, but trust me, this is way different than any scrap build you guys have ever seen me cook up, and I am super excited to get in this one today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so for the main deck today, getting right in, I'm so excited to show you guys this build. We are, of course, running the usual 3 Scrap Raptor, just best starter in the deck. He just does so much. Next up here, 3 Scrap Golem. This ratio is a little bit unusual, but for once, Scrap Golem is actually not a brick. You actually kind of want to see him in your hand sometimes. 2 Scrap Chimera. I just found that having 2 copies in the deck was nice. If you open it, it's just beautiful. If not, you know, you have 1 for the follow-up. So 2 Chimera has been suiting me really well for this deck. 1 Scrap Orthros, extra target off of one of our searchers that allows us to be able to play through some stuff. Like if our Scrap Raptor gets like impermed or veilered, this can help us play through a little bit. And then 1 Scrap Goblin, extra tuner for the deck, allows you to be able to recycle stuff to your hand when it's destroyed. So basically you can just add back a Chimera and then have almost guaranteed follow-up, which is really good. Now for the new part of this deck that really changes a lot for it. I had to adjust the entirety of this deck so much to make this work. So we have 3 Vernisylph of the Flourishing Hills here. So with this one, you can discard this card and 1 monster or Vernisylph card to add a Vernisylph card from your deck to your hand. Just basically is going to search another Vernisylph monster. But then after that, you can also, if you want to, special summon an Earth monster from the graveyard. So the Vernisylphs are the entire reason why Golem is no longer a brick, because you can discard one of these guys plus Golem to be able to get whatever the Vernisylph effect is first, and then special summon Golem from grave. It's just super free. It works really well as extenders. It can even be used as a starter. It's just insane. Also 3 Vernisylph of the Misting Seedlings. This one basically is the same concept as Flourishing Hills. You just get to add 1 Earth Fairy from your deck to your hand and then special summon an Earth monster from your graveyard. Super strong. 2 Vernisylph of the Flowering Fields. This one adds back an Earth monster from your graveyard to your hand and then special summons an Earth from grave. Also playing 1 Vernisylph of the Thawing Mountains. This is just a draw 1 and then special summon from grave. It's also an extra name. They are all, of course, hard once per turn, so having extra names does kind of help. 1 Vernisylph of the Awakening Forest. This one sends an Earth monster that can be normal summoned or set from your deck to your graveyard and then revives an Earth from the graveyard other than the monster sent. So it's good in some cases. Like if you open Golem and this guy, you can send a Scrap Raptor to grave, summon the Golem, and then be able to use Golem to revive Raptor and get full combo. It's just insane. But he's only really good at 1. I've been testing with him at 3, and I think it's just been overkill, in all honesty. I want stuff that refills the hand more than I do fills the graveyard. And then for the non-engine monsters, we are, of course, playing triple Ash Blossom, also running double Effect Veiler. So that's going to do it for the monsters. We'll go and hop over to the spells really quick. Of course, triple Scrapyard because we want to max out on consistency for the Scrap Raptor. If we already open up Scrap Raptor or another way to Scrap Raptor, we can use this to search the Scrap Orthros to be able to play through certain disruptions. Triple Fossil Dig. More ways to Raptor. This is a total of 9 copies right here, not including the Vernisylph. 2 Scrap Factory. Well, technically 3 because we are playing the 1 Terraforming. The reason I opted to play the 1 Terraforming instead of the Scrap Factory is just for deck thinning purposes. Next up here, 3 Triple Tactics Talents. There's so many monster effects getting activated on your turn that this is just like an insane card this format. Being able to rip a card out of your opponent's hand, draw 2, or steal a monster, all of it's just really good. Last up here, we are playing 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Call by the Grave. All right, so for the extra deck here, we are actually running a pretty decent sized package. And once again, don't forget about the Vernisylphs. You cannot activate non-Earth effects for the rest of the turn after you use them. So I really had to build this extra deck around that, and it was really tough. But you can still summon non-Earth monsters. That's the tricky part. So of course, as normal, playing the double Scrap Wyvern. 1 G Golem Stubborn Menhir, just a free link 2 that just requires 2 Earth monsters, and then if it's special summoned from the grave, you can target 1 Earth monster into your grave that can be a normal summoned or set. Either add it to your hand, or you can special summon it to the field, negate its effects, and banish it when it leaves the field. So usually it's adding back to hand because once again that guarantees more follow-up, but you can revive this easily off of your Vernisylphs if you link it off first. So it basically just becomes an extra Link 2 on field that allows you to add a monster back to your hand for more follow-up. It's been nice. Next up, one Nightmare Cerberus. It's an earth monster, it's monster removal, and its co-link effect actually does come up. Co-linked monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. There are quite a few cases in which that effect is relevant. So one Donner Dagger for hire, another Link 2 Earth, just a generic. It's basically Scrap Dragon in a Link 2. You just pop itself and pop a card in your opponent's field. One Trigate Wizard. It's not super often that you get the triple co-link on this, but it is definitely possible. Your biggest thing is actually that first effect for being able to make any monster you control deal double battle damage. Or making a monster co-link to this card deal double battle damage is really insane. And then the second effect to be able to banish a card on field is also really nice to help clear boards. So Trigate Wizard is nice. Ironically, also an earth monster. I didn't realize that until I started looking through the card catalog, so that was pretty funny. One G Golem Invalid Dolmen. This is like the biggest part of your end board. Just requires 2+ earth monsters, and then co-linked monsters you control are unaffected by monster effects activated on your opponent's field. So if they try to use monster effects to clear your board, pretty much everything you end with is going to be co-linked. So you kind of want to end up with these two co-linked and then a Scrap Wyvern up here co-linked. So that way you have a really hard to outboard, real hard to deal with. It basically has to be like Dark Ruler or Evenly, or even Droplets, I guess, could do it. But they have to draw like specific outs to be able to deal with it, because Invalid Dolmen also has an effect where your opponent's monsters can only attack it. So that does really help out a lot. And then if it's destroyed, you can negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls, even when it's destroyed by battle. So that's a pretty strong effect. Invalid Dolmen really helps us kind of wall up and be able to ensure that we'll stay alive. Next up here, we are playing the Apollousa, because believe it or not, her effect to have attack equal to the number of materials used for her summon times 800 is not activated. It's just an effect. So you can still get around that, and then on your opponent's turn, Apollousa is live. So there are some funny cases as well where you can like co-link this and the Invalid Dolmen just to have a couple negates on top of your Invalid Dolmen, and then your opponent can't just go battle phase and walk over Apollousa. They have to attack into the Invalid Dolmen first, at which point it negates everything on your opponent's field, kind of serving the same purpose that Apollousa was going to anyways. So still works out just fine. My favorite card in this deck is the Nightmare Griffin. Once again, you still can't activate his effects, but he still has his continuous effect where monsters are special summon monsters can't activate effects unless they are linked. Next up here, the last linked monster is going to be one Borderland Dragon. Once again, it's not Earth, so you can't activate its effects, but you don't care about activating this guy's effects. The biggest part are that it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and then it can attack each monster your opponent controls once each. All right, now for the Synchros. This format has proven that Naturia Beast is just too insane. He is an Earth monster, super easy to summon in this deck. You have a ton of ways to get there. Nat Beast is just really nice. Actually, I might have to relook at this card, because I just realized that the only way I was making this before was with Scrap Searcher and Scrap Mind Reader. I did have Scrap Mind Reader in this deck. I was just silly and took it out. So basically all I would end up doing is I'd probably just cut that Foolish to add in the Scrap Mind Reader again, because that's your level 1 tuner to make Nat Beast. So my apologies on that. There is supposed to be a Scrap Mind Reader in the main deck. I was just working on it this morning and I completely spaced about that entire thing. So my bad. Next up, we do have one Scrap Dragon. We are still playing the boy. Same theory as Scrap Twin Dragon. He is super easy to summon in this deck. Level 9s are like the easiest synchros to make for this deck, so it's really nice there. Also helps break boards, adds back to hand instead of shuffle, or instead of destroying them. So it's a little bit better removal. It is still targeting, but it also bounces 2 instead of destroying 1. So overall, Scrap Twin is usually better, but it has to be 2 monsters, so or 2 cards at least. But if they only have 1, then you can go Scrap Dragon instead. Finally, for the synchros, one Baron de Fleur. This one is a little harder to make, but there are definitely cases in which the levels line up right and you can get an Omni Negate out of it and then be able to pop stuff as well. And the last card for the extra deck here is one Bagooska the Terribly Tired Taper. Doesn't really matter that this is an Earth monster. Just having that Floodgate effect really helps you kind of stall out, so you can make sure you get plays for a little bit. So that's it for the extra. Let's go and cover the side super quick. It's not like super in-depth or super crazy or anything. I just kind of made it as generic as possible to be able to deal with as many decks of the format as possible, but also still kind of keep Kashtira in mind. So we are playing Triple Alpha, the Master of Beasts. Alpha is just an insane card, being a 3k beater. They can also bounce cards back to the hand and is an Earth monster. Everything about this guy is just absolutely insane. I love Alpha. He works so well in this deck. Next up, Triple Book of Moon. And there's a lot of cases where Kashtira boards will just end on a Rise Heart pass, so you just book the one Rise Heart and you're free to play. Triple Dark Ruler. This is kind of more so if like you get bigger boards you're going up against. It's just easy to really break boards with this. This deck doesn't always OTK, so it's nice to know that you have this option to be able to just break a board and then play on your terms. Also, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster and 2 Lightning Storm. I like Lightning Storm for the versatility of it. There's not a lot of situations where the Destroy Monsters comes up, but having extra back row removal is nice. I basically just want to make sure I don't die to back row decks, because that is one of the biggest crutches of scraps, is dying to back row. Following that up, also a triple evenly matched, same thing, but you can also deal with combo heavy monster boards, which is really nice. So there's just extra flexibility in all these options. Like I said, I tried to keep this side deck as generic as I could, while still being able to deal with a lot of the biggest stuff. As the format develops and I kind of figure out the deck a little bit more and solve it a little bit better, I probably will end up changing that. But for right now, that's just kind of where I'm sitting with it. And so far, it's been doing okay. So anyways, that's all I got for you guys today with this scrap deck profile. Like I said, it is something entirely different that I have ever done before. I'm super excited about this build. I think it's a ton of fun, this format, and you guys could definitely experiment around with this and kind of see your thoughts on the deck as well. If you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, guys. I love hearing your input. And if you want to see a combo tutorial from this deck to see how it plays or like some test hands, let me know down in the comments as well. I will be more than happy to do that. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining, and as always, remember, good fun. Have luck.
Can't make a promise, but I do my best. 25 sitting on 25 racks. Just got started, no, we ain't done yet. But a new crib, that's a goddamn flex. Sign that check. Told them last year that I've been up next. Can't take calls, but I send that text from way downtown, but the shit's still wet. Yeah, that's a guarantee. King of the city, man, they knowing that it's me. 8 damn years, still doing it with ease.